We're here in the Flagship studio at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference. We're in the final stretch of a long week, and I'm delighted to be joined by Craig Williams, here to talk to us about vaccines and the work you're doing at Apriori Bio. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me.
So vaccines, something that we talk about a lot and is personal to a lot of us.
Yes.
Tell us about why Apriori is not your standard issue vaccine development company.
All right. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And second, maybe it's a good thing to address the elephant in the room. So when I talk about vaccines, sometimes, particularly here in America now, there may be a negative perception in terms of the sentiment and the volume of noise we're hearing around vaccines. But maybe we should be reminded that this is the greatest healthcare intervention since clean drinking water, that this marketplace is a $90 billion marketplace that is growing. And, you know, ultimately, we have saved millions and millions of lives. And you know, to watch what's happening in South Carolina right now with the measles outbreak is a good example of why vaccines are needed, the fact that vaccines aren't going anywhere. And my uncle likes to tell me that more people believe in vaccines that don't. And so it's really, I think, incumbent upon us to continue to push and innovate and make sure that vaccines have a space in the positive narrative. So what we're doing at Apriori is just changing the way we think about designing vaccines. So for hundreds of years, we've made lots of advances. Diseases have gone away, which is why people, you know, I think vaccines have been a victim of their own success in a way, because we don't see some of these diseases anymore. And so what we're doing at Apriori is looking at that next wave of value. What value can we add to vaccine design and vaccine development? So for many years, we've been scaling vaccines, and so the manufacturing of vaccines has changed. We've been looking at the speed of how we can get vaccines out, and so mRNA was a next wave of value. But for over 200 years, no one's really changed fundamentally how we design vaccines, and that's what Apriori is looking to do. So with new technologies, AI, machine learning, and that convergence with biology, what we're looking to do is fundamentally change the way we design vaccines. So today, what we do is that we take an existing strain, a currently circulating or previously circulating strain of a virus, and we design a vaccine based on that. Now, that works very well, particularly in viruses that don't mutate. But if a virus mutates, like every year flu or COVID and what we saw with COVID, we really have to play catch up. And so we're designing vaccines based on the past, even though the virus has already moved on. So by the time we design, manufacture, approve, and distribute these vaccines, they're less effective. And I think we're seeing that in one of the worst flu seasons in quite a while this year. And so what Apriori is doing is leveraging the tools of today, AI and machine learning, and we are building antigens and vaccines with the future in mind. So we can predict viral evolution, and we can design vaccines that match the evolution of that virus. And so we're building prospective vaccines as opposed to retrospective vaccines.
It really speaks to Flagship's ethos about future back. You're predicting the future and working backwards from that to design the vaccine to get ahead of that.
That's
mutation.
exactly it. Yep.
Very exciting. You had 2 collaborations that you announced last year. Tell us a little bit about both of those and how those play into your strategy for changing the way vaccines are designed.
Yeah, so we had a few announcements last year. I'm sure we'll have a few this year as well, because we are attempting to globalize this innovation. And so, you know, when you think about science and innovation, it doesn't all come from the US and it doesn't all come from us. So you need partners, collaborators, academia, government, the ecosystem to join in on the creation of this innovation. And so our partnerships with the Francis Crick in the UK, our partnerships with A-Star in Singapore, are a way to tap into this innovation and information that allows us to build proprietary technology, build proprietary data sets, and ultimately proprietary products that add a real benefit to society. And so when we think about and step back and look at the market as a whole, vaccines is a $90 billion market per year. 65% of that exists outside the US. And so even though we may wake up here in the US and the narrative isn't always positive about vaccines, the rest of the world seems to be stepping into that narrative in a much more positive way. And so already we see 65% of the business opportunity outside the US. But we need to realize that a lot of that innovation is also stepping in and creating kind of a fill for that vacuum that may be existing here in the U.S. So we are partnering with people globally, whether it's academia, private institutions, pharma companies, and we believe that innovation will happen globally for a global solution.
Right, because vaccines are not, they're transcending borders, and so is innovation.
Yes.
So you need to bring that all together to make it work.
I think if we learned anything from COVID, it is that the problems aren't isolated. The issues aren't isolated, and so the solutions also should not be isolated.
Well, tell us a little bit about 2026. What are your priorities? What should we be watching for?
Well, big plans for 2026. Last year, we took huge steps in transforming from this platform company that was working on COVID and a testing ground to a company that has a full pipeline. And so we've done a lot of work, and we have a first and only H5N1 asset and practicing our capability in the pandemic space. We have a seasonal flu opportunity that will completely change the paradigm of flu, working across multiple seasons and across hemispheres. And so we're also looking at stabilization activity in RSV and RSV combinations. And so we have a wealth of opportunity to expand the pipeline application from COVID into other infectious diseases. And I see this year us in an application mode. So we have increased the speed and scale of our platform and the technology. And now it's about application and making sure we apply this technology in many different formats. So I think by the end of this year, not only will you see more partnerships, but you'll actually see a pipeline forming, and not only a pipeline that is incremental in its benefits, but we're talking about transformational product opportunities that will not only change kind of patient outcomes, but will change policy as well. No longer will you need a seasonal flu vaccine.
That'd be great.
No longer will the avian flu virus have a hold on human-to-human transmission, because we can anticipate that. So we're entering a space where, one day I imagine that we will be able to create a vaccine just for you. And so the tailoring opportunity with the technology we have is immense. And so we're starting at this regional space where we can create even regional vaccines. Beyond the global vaccine, we can start to narrow that down. And one day, as long as manufacturing can come along with that, we could even have vaccines that match your immune profile. So the technology is powerful. The future is, I'm very optimistic about the future. And we're big believers that this year will be a big year at Apriori.
It sounds like it. You're really taking that platform from promise into pipeline reality, and we're looking forward to watching along with you. Thank you, Craig.
No, thank you so much. Appreciate it.